Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie and today I am wrapping up everything I read in November and providing somewhat of a December TBR. My goodness, my hair has just not been cooperating lately. I should really do something about it, but I don't want to even get into that. It's been a hectic month for sure. My reading in November, I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit of a struggle. And so was getting this video out. I posted my last video, which was reading nominees to the Goodreads Choice Awards. And I mean, honestly, that video was a bit of a struggle. It took a lot out of me. It took way longer than I was expecting. I didn't plan for it very well because I completely forgot that the Goodreads Choice Awards were a thing and that I would want to read the nominees. So did not plan for that very well. And because of that video, I didn't end up making another video that I was planning to make. And and it pushed this video back. So that's been very upsetting. And in general, I really did kind of just fail completely with my November TBR. And so because of that, I think that I'm just not going to do a December TBR. I have been in a very strange reading mood honestly, ever since the beginning of October. And I'm just like not really finding things that are connecting with me in the way that I want them to. I think I just want to truly like let go of the TBR structure because clearly I don't do it anyway and just read what I feel like, when I feel like for at least a month. I think it's just a very busy time of year and it does make it hard to prioritize reading in the way that I normally would. Or maybe, I don't know, just seasons of reading come and go and you read at a different pace at different times. And it just is what it is. So this video was late. I still have my fall reads board up there because usually I do a seasonal TBR on top of these monthly ones. But I am just not gonna touch that TBR board because I can't even come up with a TBR for December. So now that you know that you should not expect to see any books that I mentioned in my November TBR, we can get into what I actually read. Kicking off November, I actually went like a whole week without reading anything. And again, I was feeling really like, don't know what to read. I'm not in the mood for anything really. And so I picked up a bunch of manga and you can watch and see what I read in that video. I'm just gonna skip over the manga for this section, getting into the novels. I'm going to keep explaining why I didn't read as much this month, even though I know it doesn't even matter. And honestly, I still read like I don't know, 7 or 8 books, so I don't even know why I feel the need to justify, but I will say that a lot of the books I read this month were on audiobook. Starting out with The Measure by Nikki Erlich. This was a very interesting read and I have been honestly waiting to make this video so I can talk to you about The Measure because I had such low expectations for this book. And that is contrary to usually how I read. I usually go in with much too high expectations and then inevitably I'm disappointed. So when I went in with really low expectations, I actually was really pleasantly surprised with this. The Measure is a book I'd been kind of seeing around. I think it was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick for a while. It came out earlier this year or late 2022, don't remember. But it is a sort of, I don't really know the genre. It's kind of, it's like magical realism, sci-fi, but it doesn't actually really matter. The premise of this book is that one day, every person on the planet over the age of 22 wakes up and they find a box on their doorstep. And inside that box, there is a piece of string, and that string correlates to the length of that person's life. So obviously, this is a super fun, intriguing, juicy premise. And I was so interested in what was going to happen here. But to be honest, I did have super low expectations because usually when something has such a high concept premise, it always disappoints me. And I was not really like expecting this to do anything very well. I was expecting it to brush upon some thoughts that one would have with this premise, but mainly to follow a couple characters that were pretty flat and underdeveloped and kind of just make this an over dramatic, melodramatic mess. I expected this to be kind of fluff, kind of nonsense, kind of nothing, a good premise, but did nothing with it. And I was so wrong. I actually really enjoyed this book. I gave this book at least a 4 stars. It might even be a little bit higher, maybe like a 4.25. This was much more well done than I could have ever expected. And Nikki Erlich, I have never read anything by this author. I don't even know if this is a debut or what else they've written. I don't know. I have no knowledge of this author. But now that I've read this and I was so impressed with it, I'll definitely go back and see, you know, what else Nikki Erlich has written, because yeah, I was shocked that this actually went to the dark, difficult, hard places that this premise needs. What I found very interesting about this book was that you could tell it was a product of 2020, of COVID-19. And what I mean by that is that this story, you could tell, was inspired by the events of that time, and you can really understand where Nikki Erlich was pulling her inspiration from, but it's not heavy-handed. It's well written to the point that I think probably a lot of readers may not pick up on that, but I definitely did, because I've just been taught to read books in the context of the times that they've been written, and it just made sense to me that way. But it's really clever because she integrates all of the politics and discussions that we as a society have kind of brought to the forefront in the past couple years, but with this super high stakes context. It was intriguing, it was emotional. I do think that there are a couple parts that I felt like could have gone even farther, but I really was just impressed with this. Honestly, I would like to own a copy of this book because I just enjoyed it so much. And I can definitely see myself recommending this to a lot of different readers, especially if they are interested in these kind of like high concept, high stakes premises. It's emotional, it's well written, it deals a lot with politics in a way that I really enjoy, so I would absolutely recommend this one. The next book I read was Penance by Eliza Clark. Okay, this one is a little crazy. It's dark. It's very dark. I first heard of Eliza Clark because Jack Edwards constantly recommends the book Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. And to be honest, I don't know too much about that book. I know that he loves it, but I was more interested in Penance. Penance is a kind of commentary on the true crime genre because it's a fiction version of a true crime journalist who is covering the story of this small town murder. And specifically, it is the murder of a young teenage girl by a group of 3 to 4 other girls in her class of the same age. It's a brutal murder. They actually torture her. It's really dark stuff. But the book is from the perspective of this journalist covering this heinous crime. It is a super clever dissection of the true crime genre. This book is honestly the indictment of the true crime genre that I thought Notes on an Execution by Daniel Kukafa would be. I mean, they're very different premises. And I know that Notes on an Execution is more speaking to the white male serial killer thing that is what people are weirdly interested in with true crime. But Penance talks about that too. Penance, this book is so crazy. I'm having a hard time even like articulating my thoughts on it because I cannot stress enough how dark and messed up this book really gets, because they're examining these teenage girls who went to such extreme lengths, were pushed to such extreme lengths. It talks about social media, friendships, relationships, and specifically the dangers that are present in up and coming in an internet world, which seems like that could get into some dicey territory. But I think that it really did bring to light some issues that are prevalent in the world. I don't know. Look, this book, just be aware. If you're going to go into it, just know you're getting into some really, really, really weird stuff. And I'm a person who came up on the internet. I was on Tumblr in the Tumblr Prime days. I was a child of the weird days of YouTube where they're putting up like crazy, grotesque videos, and that's what kids were watching. Like, I was the generation that this book is really speaking about. So it connected with me because I knew exactly what they were talking about when they're talking about the Tumblr internet language, fan culture, and this kind of collective obsession with true crime. I mean, I was there for all of that. So if you are not inundated with internet culture, I think that this could be a very difficult book to understand. It does a good job of laying everything out, but if you were not there, if you did not experience Tumblr the way that we all experience Tumblr, I feel like this book, I don't know if it's going to be more shocking, if it's going to be more confusing, if it's going to be more strange. I don't know, but I loved this. I loved this, and I think that it really did a good job of pointing out all the issues with true crime as well as a bunch of other issues. I've talked a lot about this book, but it's just because I did not know what to expect when I went into this book, and I'm really pleasantly surprised again with what I got here. Next up, a book that actually was on my October TBR that I didn't get to. I meant to read this on Halloween on October 31st because it takes place on Halloween, but I didn't get to it. I tried, so I did read this in early November, and that is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is an odd choice for me. I honestly had no interest in reading Alice Feeney. It's not the thing I like, it's kind of a basic thriller. I don't care, but this takes place in Cornwall, and I bought this book while I was in Cornwall, so I was just like, oh, I have to do it. And I've also heard that a lot of people really like Daisy Darker, even if they don't like anything else that she's written. So I enjoyed my time with this. Like, I don't think it's amazing. The twist is definitely insane. It's crazy. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I like it. I can say I didn't predict it. It's fine. It's like, I mean, if you're gonna do a twist, like, do a twist, which this does. So, I mean, thumbs up there. I also really liked that it is very much just a true homage to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Very much in that vein. It works pretty well. I mean, I really liked how straightforward it was in that regard. I didn't care about all the family dynamics. I think that's just not something that I enjoy in my media. Like, family dysfunction is not a trope that I'm interested in. So it kind of lost a few points for me there because I just did not care. I just did not care. I prefer it where they're like strangers that are locked up together over like a family. But for what it was pretty entertaining, and I mean, I'm not upset that I read it, so there you go. And then from the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees, I read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This is a thriller, a domestic thriller, which I somehow didn't know when I started reading it, but yeah, that's what it is. And though this is the talk of the thriller booktube, I mean, it was just like any other thriller, domestic thriller to me. It was slightly better written than most, I would say. Actually, I think the writing was pretty strong. I really enjoyed what the author Lisa Jewell was doing with the perspectives, and it didn't make me angry the way that other domestic thrillers have, but it also didn't do too much that I haven't seen before either, so it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Moving on. Next up, a book that has been on my TBR for over a year, so I was happy to get to it. That is Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I've said this before, so you might already know this, but Ishiguro is one of my favorite authors since reading Never Let Me Go. Never Let Me Go is one of my favorite books of all time, and I had never read another Ishiguro, so he was just my favorite author just from that one book. which does happen to me quite a lot. I have a lot of favorite authors that I really love one thing that they've written, and I'm exploring their other works, but yeah, I had never read anything else by Ishiguro, but I absolutely love Never Let Me Go so much. So I was so happy to pick up Clara and the Sun. With all that being said, Clara and the Sun did not really work for me, unfortunately. It's not to say that it's a bad book. It's Ishiguro, so obviously the writing, very gorgeous, pretty well done, great character development, stuff like that, but it did not connect with me the way that Never Let Me Go connected with me. And, you know, to be honest, of all of his books, this one was the one that I was kind of the least interested in to begin with. I mean, that like the AI thing and the artificial intelligence as humanity discussion is such an overdone trope in sci-fi at this point that I didn't really expect to get anything new out of this. Although Ishiguro is amazing. He's amazing. So I had faith. But I really wouldn't say that I disliked this. I just think it is very, very similar to Never Let Me Go, and in a way that felt kind of derivative. I mean, you can really see the similarities, and Ishiguro is trying to hit that stride. I mean, Never Let Me Go is like a modern classic. Like, it is like inarguably one of the best books in like the past century. Like, it is a masterpiece through and through. And I feel like you can feel Ishiguro trying to reach that level again. And it's not to say that like he's a one-hit wonder, because that's absolutely not true. I know people love Remains of the Day. I know people love When We Were Orphans, which is something I really want to get to very soon. So it's not to say that like he can only write one thing and that was just like his one concept that he nailed. He can write other things really well. I just think that he went back to something that felt comfortable to him. But I mean, in the world of sequels, prequels, reboots, I think we can kind of see through that a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying something completely outlandish. Like, maybe other people did not feel that this was similar to, if not derivative of, Never Let Me Go. But regardless of even all that, I just did not feel that the pacing in this story was done well. I felt like we were just kind of like crawling to something. Like, it never felt like it had this tension that it was racing towards. And to be fair, Never Let Me Go is not a fast-paced book. In fact, it is a slow, emotional unraveling, but it really worked because the characters were so well done. And the characters in here are, I mean, they're not the worst, but they're also just nothing compared to the characters in Never Let Me Go. I don't know. It's like, it sucks that I'm comparing these two books, but honestly, like, there's so much similar about them. Like, you can't help but compare them because they are so similar in so many ways. I'm sad to say that this was just a 3, and honestly, it's probably a 3 if I'm being generous. I really wouldn't recommend this because there are other artificial intelligence sci-fi stories that I feel like work with the premise a lot better than this. And if you're gonna read an Ishiguro and you haven't read Never Let Me Go, that is the one you need to read and the one you should start with, because that one, absolute masterpiece. Next up, I read Shark Heart. This was again a pick for the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees. That's why I was reading it for, but I'd also been trying to read this book since August when I got it from Book of the Month. And this is a very, it's a very tough book in a lot of ways. It's very, very beautiful. Shark Heart, a Love Story by Emily Habnick. This is the story, it's a magical realism story, but again, magical realism, it's not really the point. It's just used as a metaphor, similar to how The Measure is also a kind of magical element, but it's really not the point. In here, our protagonists are a married couple who they've just recently gotten married, and they receive devastating news that one of them has a disease in which they will turn into a great white shark. And the goofiness or the awkwardness of that premise is, again, like, really not the point. The point is that this character will inevitably lose their memory and be as good as not alive for the purpose of this other character. So it is a very grief, sorrow-filled story about these two people facing the reality that one of them will cease to exist in the current state, and they will be forced apart. And it's just, the first part of this, it's told in 3 parts, and the first part is just like, it really ripped my heart out, and it was honestly hard to read. And again, for some reason, I've just been reading stories about this very sad premise. Again, The Measure had an element of this as well. So I'm just reading these like back to back, just really sad things. But Emily Habnick is a beautiful writer. Her writing is very poetic, so it's clear that her interest is in poetry, and she does have this very beautiful, intense prose that is very clearly influenced from poetry. And I mean, it's just really well done. It's gonna rip your heart out, but it has a lot to say about humanity, and I did really like it. I probably wouldn't rate it as high as I've seen some other people rate it. I really liked it, but I did feel that the way that it was broken into a couple different sections just made it feel a little bit disjointed, and I just didn't love that it moved the focus from where I thought the core of the story really was. If you liked something like Our Wives Under the Sea, I could see how you would like this as well, although this is like semi kind of horror, and this is nothing like that, but they're kind of dealing in the same vein at times. So I did really enjoy this. I gave this a 4 stars. And then the final book that I read in November was Blackouts by Justin Torres. This won the National Book Award, and I was also reading it for the first round of the Goodreads Choice Awards. And this is a literary fiction novel that really is just a piece of literature. Like, when you think literature, this is the kind of book that comes to mind. It's a very deep, complicated, challenging book about a gay protagonist he goes to visit an older man that he met in a hospital. They formed a friendship, and he's at the end of this old man's life, and they are speaking about this book that was written that chronicles the life of a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals, and they are talking about their shared experiences, the experiences of the people in this book. And yeah, it's quite complicated. I talk a lot about this in my reading blog that I read it for the Goodreads Choice Awards. It's a very just like cerebral, like high intensity kind of novel. I don't know, it feels like academic almost, like it feels like you need to dissect it in a college course to really get everything out of it. I liked it, but I don't think that I was really engaging with it in the way that it needed to be engaged with in order to fully enjoy. I thought the writing was very beautiful, and I definitely appreciated everything that was going on in this book. I really just, in general, I appreciate the effort and respect this novel so much. It just did not connect with me personally in the way that I was hoping it would. I mean, it's clear why this won the National Book Award. It deals with all of the themes you would expect to find in a book like this. Of course, LGBTQ plus identity, but also race and class and, oh my gosh, art, literature, it's all in there in this very beautiful artistic blend. So if that sounds like something you're interested, absolutely check it out. But if you kind of shy away from the idea of reading a very literature-like book, then this probably won't be the book for you. All right, moving on from what I read in November to my December TBR. And to be honest, like, I just don't even really want to make a December TBR. Like, I just failed so badly in my November TBR. Like, I don't think I read hardly anything that I said I was going to read. I mean, I did read Shark Heart and Daisy Darker, but yeah, no, that didn't really end up going so well. And to be honest, I just don't know what I actually want to read. I've had so many books that I read because of other people or because I was, being influenced in one way or another, and they have not really been wins. So I'm trying to just go back and find that like pure-hearted desire to read and pick up what I want to pick up. But the trouble is that like I think I've been being influenced for so long now that I don't even know what that is anymore. So that's an interesting psychological thing I've got to work through. But I do have a couple books that I know for sure I'll be reading. In December, my book club is reading The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett. This is a little tiny novella, and it is the sequel to one of the best books I read this year, which is The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and it's Christmas themed, so how fun. It's a Christmas murder mystery. It's going to be short. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm excited to read that. And then I have the very last book in the Walking Dead Compendium series. It's Compendium 4, the final one, and I'm ready. I am ready. I hope to pick this up as soon as possible so I can get that Walking Dead video out. Super, super excited. Happy to finally be wrapping up this series and check this off my list of my 2023 goals. Aside from those two books, I think really everything else is up in the air. So I'm telling you this now. I could say, the next books that I have that I'm thinking about, that just don't believe anything that you're about to hear, because I don't even know what is going on here. But a couple of books that I do have some interest in. I recently picked up Foster by Claire Keegan. I picked this up during my Atlanta Indie Bookshop crawl, and it's super, super short, and I've just heard fantastic things. So I've been meaning to read this for a long time, and it is so short, so I think that I probably will be prioritizing it just because, I'm looking for an easy win right now, so I probably will end up getting to this. But again, no promises. I've lied to you before. I actually started this one yesterday. It just was inexplicably in the mood for some nonfiction. I picked up This is Vegan Propaganda by Ed Winters. I love Ed Winters so much. He has a fantastic YouTube channel. He's called Earthling Ed, and he's just a fantastic source of information on veganism and just all of the arguments for why animal agriculture is not the way forward in this world. And he wrote this book last year. I'm so happy I just got this on Black Friday, and I'm really excited to read everything he has to say in this book. I mean, I will say that I have probably heard all of this information before. I don't really know who the target audience for this book is, because I think he's writing it for people who want to learn more about veganism, because this is very, information heavy, packed about the reasons why we should all go vegan. So, I mean, I've heard all the arguments. You don't need to convince me. Although, I mean, I am vegetarian and mostly vegan. There's just sometimes when we go out, we're not super, super strict about it, but we're really working to be better and to be 100% vegan in the near future. So maybe I do need even more convincing, but the point is that I really love Ed Winters so much, and he has a great YouTube channel, so I'm excited to read this book. I'm also very excited because I got Nestlings by Nat Cassi. This is a literary horror book that I have heard absolutely fantastic things about. I've never read a Nat Cassi before, but I've had so many people tell me he should be the next author that I look into, because he's just got the vibes that I'm looking for, and this sounds so fantastic. To be honest, don't really know too much about it, other than I think it's like a married couple who loses a child, and then, I don't know, some horror ensues from that. I don't know. But it's a literary horror. I've heard Nat Cassi's writing is absolutely excellent, so I am very, very excited to read this. And I mean, I hope I read it this month, but who knows? We'll see. Recently on audiobook, I have also picked up We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry, and this is a sort of fantastical, satirical humor about a women's field hockey team in New England. They live in the town that was the location of the Salem witch trials, and they are kind of a down on their luck team. They really need a win, and so they call upon their ancestral spirits to help them out, and hilarity and chaos ensues. And I have started this book already. It's kind of a long audiobook, and it's quite dense. Like, if I look at, like, this is some small text on that page. And even when I was listening to the first hour or so of the book, very clear that it is very dense writing. I mean, Quanberry can just craft these, like, it's just dense and well crafted, but also, like, you really got to pay attention. So it's kind of interesting because I really wasn't expecting that from a humor book, but you can tell that Quanberry has such a skill with writing. But I'm listening to it on audiobook, and I'm kind of realizing that, like, I'm missing some of the jokes because I listen to my audiobooks on 2x speed, and I'm kind of feeling like I have to slow down this book in order for me to get all of the jokes, which that does not usually happen. So I don't know how to go about that. I don't know, maybe I will switch to the physical because there is a joke in, like, every single line, and it's just so clever and so interesting. And also, I am both an ex-athlete and a current coach of a youth sports team. So I think that there's a lot of humor and just situational humor that I personally would be very well suited to understanding and appreciating in here. So we will see. It's quite a dense read, but I think it could be amazing. And finally, so I've been thinking about potentially rereading The Hunger Games. I feel like everybody is rereading The Hunger Games right now because of the new Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. God, I hate that title so much. Because of that new movie, and I did see it last night, and I got some things to say. So I'm considering making a video after I reread the first book. I'm not going to reread the whole trilogy, and I'm certainly not going to read that Snakes book. I read it when it came out, and I'll save everything I have to say for the video that I'm going to make when I reread this, if I reread this, because I mean, who knows? Why am I even making a TBR? I don't do what I say I'm going to do. I don't read the books I say I'm going to read. So, I don't know. I could potentially be lying to you right now. All those books I said I'm going to read, who knows? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. There you go, guys. Those are all the books that I am considering reading in December, but we will see what ends up actually happening. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day, week, month, year. I will see you back here next time. Thanks so much. Bye.